Hello, hello, hello. It is Tuesday morning, January 21. Good to see you today, and welcome to the program, The Bill Press Show, that is, coming to you live from our nation's capital here and our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where the House and the Senate are off extending their celebration of the Martin Luther King birthday, which we all remembered and marked yesterday. So on the news front, big snowstorm headed for Washington, D.C., supposedly later today, but already before one snowflake has even fallen, not one yet, they have already shut down schools in Washington, and the federal government is shut down in anticipation of a big snowstorm, which may or may not happen. What a bunch of weenies we have become. So typical of Congress. Get nothing done, and if they think there may be a problem, cancel everything. President and the First Family out yesterday, marking Martin Luther King's birthday by volunteering their services at a homeless shelter, preparing burritos for the crowd there. Chris Christie facing more problems up in New Jersey, and so he has suddenly shifted his tactics. He no longer is blaming everything on his staff. Now he says, since he's the only person who can possibly beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. This whole mess is a plot by the Democratic Party to undermine his candidacy in 2016, a plot by the Democratic Party with the help of the media, especially MSNBC. What total nonsense. Chris Christie looking more and more like a political hack. And in Switzerland today, talks get underway on resolving the Syrian civil war. Iran will not have a seat at the table after all. Lots to talk about today on all fronts, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look! Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, January 21. Here we go with the Bill Press Show. Hey, great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed your Martin Luther King holiday, if you had one, or at least took time out to celebrate the great man's legacy wherever you happen to be, if you were at work like we were. And here we go back with the rest of the work week and the rest of the news happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, and around the globe. We're with you on your local progressive talk radio station. We are there with you on Free Speech TV. Hello, hello. And we're there with you on our video stream, TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. And you know how to get there. It's YouTube channel, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Welcome, 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 however you're joining us by radio, by Free Speech, or by the video stream. And don't forget, as important as anything I have to say are your comments on what's going on. You see it from your perspective all around this country. We want to hear from you by phone at 866-55-PRESS. We want to get your comments on Twitter at BP Show. And we want to hear from all of our friends of the Bill Press Show around the country at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Well, the huge snowstorm about to hit Washington, D.C. Any moment, but it didn't stop us this morning. The reason it didn't stop us is because there ain't no snow. Not one flake yet, at any rate. But the team's all here. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hey. Good morning.
Get your chains on the car this morning and everything you got.
Yeah, I skied here.
Yeah, that's if you hear the weather reports, that's what you think you might have to do, right? Cross-country skis.
They're making it sound very scary.
They are making it sound very scary. Alicia Cruz is here on the phones. Everybody's here. We may just end up staying here because it could be snowed in. Do we get enough food? Is there enough food in the pantry?
We have rations.
I brought some cocoa.
Oh, yeah. Right. And Cyprian Boulding here as well, keeping the video cams and the lights on so we can look good.
Cyprian has footage of some of the snow. It's not that bad out, Cyprian. That's not a live shot. That's from the last time we got snow.
But, it is true. So they're predicting that the snow is going to hit the East Coast, including Washington, D.C., sometime about 4 hours from now. Washington, D.C., we don't wait. We don't wait for it to snow. We take precautions. We shut everything down a week ahead of time.
Yeah.
Why take a chance, right?
Yeah.
So the schools are closed today. The federal government's already closed today. I don't know. Probably the banks and the post office are closed.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Weirdly enough, my kids had the day off anyway. It was a teacher work day today for them. But I guarantee you they would have canceled
It is
school
totally insane. Why can't we grow up and be like Chicago? Seriously, or be like Buffalo, or just be like a normal city that gets snow, right? You just deal with it.
You deal with it.
Anyhow, Washington cannot deal with it. Yesterday, Martin Luther King, to commemorate the Martin Luther King birthday and remember what it's all about, remind us maybe what it's all about, President Obama and the First Family, as they have done every year, went out to did a public service project. Yesterday, they went out to a homeless shelter, and they got in line helping make burritos.
We are noting the 25th anniversary of this outstanding institution, and very proud to be a part of it. And we just want to thank everybody who's here for all the great work they do. We ran out of burritos.
Burritos? All right. You got them?
Or tortillas.
He means tortillas.
I'll go. You got it?
Sasha's technique is outstanding, by the way.
He's standing alongside his daughter, Sasha.
We're very proud
making
of
burritos.
Looks like we have lamb here. It's like a lamb burrito.
This beef?
Beef?
A lamb? Beef. And,
beef, I couldn't tell.
With the sauce.
You got the beef with the sauce. We got some vegetables.
I don't think he spends a lot of time in the kitchen.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so, right?
I don't think I've ever heard of a lamb burrito.
A lamb burrito. I think they call those gyros.
Yeah, exactly. But so in honor of the occasion, I was not on pool duty yesterday, then there was no White House briefing, so they were out making burritos. I went and had a burrito.
There you go.
Burrito bowl.
Okay, there you go.
At Chipotle.
Very nice.
Which is one of my favorite new
Those are really
foods.
good.
Really
They're
good.
spicy, and all the they have the carrot.
Well, if you make it spicy, they're spicy.
No, but it's just a little bit of spice, not too much. It's actually really good. I love those.
Well, you choose. I mean, you decide what goes in your burrito bowl, so that's up to you. Mine wasn't spicy. I don't like spicy. But there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But it's a good way to have a burrito without feeling guilty because you got that big tortilla.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, if you get that tortilla and you get the full burrito situation, that you might as well have a Big Mac and a half.
Totally.
Seriously.
It's true. It's over 1,000 calories in one
it's a
burrito.
bomb. And even the burrito bowl's not that good for you. I hate to burst your bubble.
1,000 calories?
1,000 calories.
No kidding.
Because I love them in California. They're so good, but it's too many calories.
And all that rice. You got all that rice. It's a lot of rice.
Lots of beans.
Now I feel terrible.
No, you're doing better. But if you get the bowl,
I felt so, righteous after having
What'd
my
you get?
burrito
What kind of meat did you
bowl.
get? What kind of meat? Did you get the chicken?
Pork.
You got the greasy pork. Okay.
It's not chicken.
Enough about my burrito. Okay, here we go.
A few more minutes on the treadmill today when you go to the gym.
I worked it out yesterday, man.
You earned it then.
I did.
You earned it. So it work out.
Arthur Delaney's coming in, as he does every Tuesday. A little bit later this hour, Igor Volsky will be here from Think Progress. Our man Igor and Clinton Yates, 3 favorites coming in today.
Yeah.
Clinton Yates from the Washington Post. And Chris Christie, he's got a whole new tactic for dealing with this set of scandals up in New Jersey. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
What do you got, Peter?
Good morning. Good morning. Just a couple of the things making news today. Could Maryland be the next state on the marijuana bandwagon? Some Democratic lawmakers want to make it legal for Maryland residents to possess, use, and grow marijuana in a bill that they introduced late last week.
All right.
Senator Jamie Raskin from Montgomery County said that their proposed Marijuana Control Act of 2014 would take power out of the hands of drug dealers and let people in Maryland buy, use, grow pot, just like they do in Colorado.
Go, Maryland, go.
I'm all for it.
My goal...
As a Maryland resident, I'm all for it.
Yes. My goal is to smoke pot legally in all 50 states.
Hey, it could be a reality.
I'm going to run for president on that platform. Or illegally.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're halfway there illegally. 2014 could mean a change of career, and if you're thinking of changing careers, here are some possibilities you might want to avoid. These are the most stressful jobs out there. The most stressful jobs. I'll go through the top 5. Number 5 is event coordinator. Number 4 is a commercial airline pilot. Number 3 is a firefighter.
Talk radio host. Number 4.
Talk radio host not in the top 5. Number 2, a military general. Makes sense. And number 1, enlisted military personnel is the most stressful job.
Really? The enlisted personnel?
Yep.
Wow.
It's funny,
Even
like a
more so than
surgeon's
their
not on that
generals.
list.
Yeah.
Surgeon's not on the list, right?
Surgeon's not on the list.
Huh.
Producer, I think, is number 6 out of that top 5. And you remember Bat Kid, Bill? Bat Kid that took San Francisco by storm. The young child, Miles Scott, who was given a Make-A-Wish wish where he could dress up as Bat Kid and save the city of San Francisco. Well, it turns out that was not a cheap stunt to pull off. It cost about $105,000 to make it all happen.
Yeah.
And the city of San Francisco will not be stuck paying the tab. Area philanthropists John and Marcia Goldman picked up the tab. They took care of all of the preparations for Bat Kid and paid the bill for him. So,
good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I want to see more stories like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there are some good people out there who have a lot of wealth and do good things with it.
That's right.
And I've known a lot of them in my life. Thinking of Saul Price, who is the founder of the Price Club, which is now Costco, right? A real philanthropist. Look at Bill Gates. Look at Warren Buffett. And look at these people, the Goldmans from San Francisco. And then you have these turds like the Koch brothers, right, who just put all their money into trying to elect the most right-wing Republicans possible and get rid of the EPA and get rid of any government regulations so they can pollute and foul the air and foul the waters and foul the land and get away with it. So good for them, at any rate. Chris Christie back in the news. Well, he hasn't left the news for the last couple of weeks. The headline on the Huffington Post this morning, I just saw it, is Carl Lewis now, Olympic legend Carl Lewis, says that Chris Christie was gone after him and threatened him. He was thinking of running for state senate against a friend of Chris Christie's, a Republican friend, and Christie called him and basically said he was going to cut him off from Lewis had been scheduled to be appointed the state's first physical fitness ambassador. Sounds like a contradiction for New Jersey, but anyway, he was, and Christie called him and said basically nothing doing if you go ahead and run against this friend of mine, right?
And come on, you're gonna make that title political?
Yeah, I don't know. So it continues to swirl and swirl. Christie, by the way, will be sworn in today for his second term as governor, as well as the lieutenant governor yesterday. And the latest is, so we started with the bridge scandal. Then we have the mayor of closing the, allegedly, right, still yet to be proven, although even Chris Christie says it happened, that his staff, without Christie knowing anything about it, he says, closed down the George Washington Bridge 2 out of 3 lanes for 4 days in a row to get even with Mark Sokolich, the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, because he had refused to endorse Christie for re-election. Then you got the mayor of Jersey City who came out and said he had all kinds of things going on with the governor's office to help Jersey City until he declined to endorse Christie for re-election. Everybody was going to win anyway. And so then they cut him off from any contact and any contracts with the governor's office. Now we have the mayor of Hoboken, Dawn Zimmer, who came out and said she was told she wasn't going to get any Sandy relief funds for Hoboken, which was badly slammed with flooding from Hurricane Sandy. She wouldn't get any funds for Hoboken unless she approved a development project that Christie wanted yesterday. And she said she got that message from the Lieutenant Governor, Kim Guardano. The Lieutenant Governor came out yesterday and denied the whole thing.
Any suggestion that Sandy funds were tied to the approval of any project in New Jersey is completely false.
Completely false, she says, and she said actually she did like to help out Hoboken. But meanwhile, Chris Christie, have you noticed, has changed tactics completely. Okay, so he started out with this big mea culpa and the big news conference where he said, here's what happened, and it was terrible, and my staff did it, and they never should have done it, so I fired 2 people, and we're like moving on. Now that the scandals keep mounting up, he's tried a new tack. His new tack is, number one, I'm not blaming it on my staff anymore. I'm blaming it on Democrats. He says that all this is happening because, this is what he says, he's the only Democrat who can beat Hillary Clinton in 2016, so the Democratic Party has organized this campaign against him to try to cut him down now so he won't run in 2016. Yeah. That's just ridiculous. And he says the Democratic Party is doing this with the full help of the media who are out to get him. I mean, he sounds like Spiro Agnew, blaming it on the media. You know what he sounds like? He sounds like suddenly any hack politician. Instead of this Chris Christie, who was a different kind of politician that sort of people liked because he was so forthright and honest and said what everything. Now he's retreating into the old chestnuts that you hear from any politician under attack. Blame it on the other party and blame it on the media, right? I just think it makes him look again like a cheap hack politician, and he's especially blaming it on MSNBC. MSNBC, which has been they have spent a lot of time talking about the scandals, more than CNN and more than Fox. But they were in love with Christie before. They had him on all the time. He had a chair on Morning Joe with his name on it. He could just show up anytime, and they'd give him an hour of time on MSNBC and the other shows as well. It was a love affair with Chris Christie. And now that they're reporting on the scandals, he said, MSNBC, in cohorts with the Democratic Party, they're out to get me. So here it is. You know what? He's trying to play the victim again. I don't know. Here's my question is, do you think it'll work? I don't think so. I don't think people will buy it. I mean, come on. I got a better idea for Chris Christie. Just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Just tell exactly what happened. And that's what the people want. They want to hear this cheap political kind of escapism and playing the victim. Don't you think? 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it here Tuesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 25 minutes after the hour now, talking about the latest from Chris Christie. The Democrats are out to get me. They know I can beat Hillary, so they don't want me to run in 2016. That's what the Bridgegate scandal is all about. No, it's not. It's a little more serious than that. But, you know, on the Hoboken thing, yeah, Peter, a quick comment
just
here?
a quick thing on Twitter at BP Show. You can join us. You can follow our conversation.
Please do.
Out there. Which, by the way, we just put out a link on Twitter, again, at BP Show, from BuzzFeed from almost a year ago where they just took a look at the love fest between Chris Christie and Morning Joe. So this whole thing that MSNBC has a rocky relationship with Chris
Yeah,
Christie.
right,
Just go take
right.
a look at all of the instances of how in love they are with each other. But on Twitter, we're taking your comments at BP Show. Karen says, bullies don't just stop being a bully. Christie will lie until he is taken down by the truth. And NC Nomad says, Bill, what Christie's people did to Mayor Zimmer is illegal.
Well, if that's what they did.
If that's what they did.
Yeah, and again, I don't know whether what the mayor, I tend to believe her, but I don't know whether she said what she's saying is true. There's only one. The way to find out is not to blame this on the Democratic Party. The way to get set the record straight, not to blame it on the Democratic Party, not to blame it on MSNBC. Show the records.
Mm-hmm.
Show the facts. If in fact X amount of help went from the state from the federal government through the state to Hoboken, then show it. And you could shut the mayor up easily,
Yeah.
right?
You really could.
You could pull the rug out from under that mayor with the numbers, with the facts. That's my point. Just tell the truth. Tell exactly what happened. I thought Congressman Frank Pallone from New Jersey made a good point yesterday. He was saying, look, this is not what New Jersey is all about. Let's remember.
Well, I want to stress that, I don't believe that if in fact it's true that the Christie administration was linking this development project to San Diego, that's a serious charge and something that I think would be illegal and would result in, impeachment or resignation. I want to really correct this notion out there that somehow, this is business as usual in New Jersey or, amongst politicians in general.
Yeah, and the other thing I got to say is the idea, again, that the media are out to get him is nonsense. And the idea that the Democratic Party would even be capable of organizing such a scheme like shutting down the George Washington Bridge, he doesn't know the Democratic Party that well. They could never pull it off.
Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour now. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital. And here we are on Capitol Hill waiting for the big snowstorm, brought to you this morning by the United Steelworkers and their international president, Leo Gerard, the great Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. Find out more about their good work at usw.org. And look who popped into the studio. Arthur Delaney here. Of course, it's Tuesday. This time on a Tuesday, Arthur's here, labor reporter, economics reporter, hardship reporter for the Huffington Post. Arthur, good to see you. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Ooh, blizzard conditions.
I know, blizzard conditions in Washington, yes. We're geared up for the big snowstorm. 100% chance of snow by 10 o'clock Washington time, they say.
So here's the latest update.
All right.
They just
Breaking
Capitol
news.
Weather Gang, who like everybody in D.C.
sound
follows,
effect.
right?
Yeah.
So here's their update. They just updated this moments ago because they were predicting as much as 10 inches of snow north of Washington, D.C., right, in the suburbs. So
Yes.
here's straight from Capitol Weather Gang, the Washington Post. After reviewing the latest models, radars, and temperature trends, we're slightly lowering the expected snowfall for the immediate metro regions. They had said as much as 10. They're now going back and saying it's going to be probably closer to 7.
7 inches of snow?
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
That's
It is
still above average.
It's still above average.
Oh, no.
Their
7 inches would be...
What they're saying is the science behind it is that once the snow starts to come down, then the temperatures will start to cool off, which will lead to the more fluffy snow.
Doesn't it usually get warmer when it precipitates?
That's what I thought. But, I mean...
I just want to. I checked my iPhone during the break. 37 degrees outside right now in Washington, D.C. That's not
snow. Not cold enough.
That's not snow conditions. Okay, can we agree on that? We are skeptics.
The
here.
press weather gang.
The press
with the contrarian weather report.
Right. Arthur, you have performed another great public service by updating the types of a-holes that exist in Washington, D.C. It was 7 before. Now it's...
We have 8.
8. Oh.
All right.
Does this mean there are more a-holes than ever before in Washington, D.C., or different kinds?
The total number of a-holes is estimated to be in the thousands. However, we scientists as yet have classified 8.
Thousands?
8.
Tens of thousands.
There are untold types of a-holes out there, but we've, with the help of elites here in Washington who know best...
Yeah, okay.
We have identified a new species of a-hole.
Added to the list.
And so we updated the story that I did in October, which was the 7 types of a-holes in Washington. Now it is the 8 types of a-holes.
So is this progress?
Absolutely. And this is a new finding, courtesy Congressman Joaquin Castro, a Texas Democrat.
Yes.
And it all started last summer when Congressman Steve King, Iowa Republican, lamented that for every dreamer who's come to this country illegally as a child but then went on to be a valedictorian or something like that, there was another with calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
Right.
So House Speaker John Boehner immediately condemned Steve King's remarks, said this doesn't reflect our values, doesn't reflect the values of the Republican Party. And so in Texas Monthly, Joaquin Castro has written a first-person narrative of his some of his first term here.
Yes.
And he said that he and a colleague thanked Speaker Boehner when they happened to be near each other on the House floor. And the Speaker slowed his roll, and said, "What an a-hole." About Steve King.
About Steve King.
What an a-hole.
Really?
And can't you just picture him? What an a-hole.
What an a-hole.
What an a-hole.
Yeah.
And my thoughts exactly, Mr. Speaker. What an a-hole.
What an a-hole.
And with that, we have now identified cantaloupe-sized a-hole. That is the new a-hole.
I got it. With
joining absolute a-hole, major league a-hole, and a-hole central among the 8 types of a-holes that we have in Washington.
Okay, so if people if people have a particular person that they know is or they believe to be or they consider to be an a-hole, they can contact you at Huffington Post and you could tell them which category they fit into.
If you suspect you've got an a-hole on your hands, email me, arthur@huffingtonpost.com, and we can find out if it matches with any of the literature that's out there. But this is a taxonomy of a-holes as classified by their colleagues. So we don't decide who the a-holes are. We're just doing research. And reading from the text.
This is a valuable public service.
I agree.
This may be the greatest contribution Ariana Huffington has made to Western civilization.
Well, I am grateful to Ariana for my small role in helping illuminate the
we know she gets we know she gets a lot of media time and a lot of media attention. Now we understand why. It's a contribution like this.
Well, she's smart. Yeah.
So here's what I want as one of your loyal followers, okay? I want you to come out with a little booklet with the kind of a-hole and then photos of the people who fit under that category. Now, we know that Steve King fits under the cantaloupe-sized a-hole, right? But there may be others and all these other categories.
You know what he said in response?
I could think of some people that I would put in this category, but I think the official site has to do this.
Yeah, we can make an app, an a-hole app.
There you go.
There's all kinds of things we can do.
Yeah, what am I talking about, a booklet? Let's do an app.
So when it came out that John Boehner had said this about Steve King, Steve King responded, and he condemned the speaker's remarks using the verbatim statement that Speaker Boehner had used to condemn Steve King. This is something along the lines of, this name calling does not reflect our values and the values of the Republican Party. At HuffPost Hill, we said this is, credit the congressman for having a cantaloupe-sized sense of humor.
Now, I want to make sure. Boehner made this remark on the floor of the House?
In a casual conversation, not into a microphone.
I understand, but he used that phrase on the floor of the House, right?
I think that kind of language is common on the floor of the House when you're not talking in a microphone.
Well, at least it's not bad as what Dick Cheney said on the floor of the Senate.
That's true.
I just want to point that out.
The A word is not as bad as the F word.
Right, exactly. All right. Thank you again for that. May I have my New York Times back? Because I want to ask you... this very important story on moving right along, I think, in the New York Times this morning, about expanded Medicaid coverage under Obamacare. A lot of talk about, for so long, was all the problems signing up with Obamacare. Now we're seeing more and more stories like this about some of the positive impacts of Obamacare. Here's this woman. Here's what her life. She's a disabled nurse. She went along. She scrounged free samples from doctors' offices, signed up for drug company discounts, asked money from her parents and her friends, got help from her church, just barely making it. Now, under Obamacare, she's qualified. She's getting Medicaid. She's getting health coverage for the first time ever.
Look at that.
She lives in West Virginia, and there are millions and millions of people like that around the country. This is one of probably the first most important benefit, isn't it, of Obamacare?
Absolutely. And this
Medicaid.
This is why I think it's curious when libertarians and some conservatives talk about things like expanded Medicaid coverage and a safer safety net, diminishing freedom or diminishing economic freedom.
This woman had no freedom.
This lady she was completely preoccupied by how is she going to scrounge and beg her friends and family to pay for stuff. So it was a burden on her. It was a burden on her friends and family and neighbors who had to constantly chip in to keep her out of bankruptcy. And now look, but she'll be taken care of.
Now, the sad thing is that there are, 16 states or so where governors have refused to allow this expanded Medicare. I mean, some Republican governors, John Kasich, notably from Ohio, has said, I may not like Obamacare, but this is going to help a lot of people in my state, and I'm not going to stand in the way of it. Good for him. And I think, what is it? The federal government pays all of the Medicaid for the first 3 years, and after that, it's something like 90% of this expanded Medicaid cost. So it's a really good deal. 75,000 people in West Virginia alone now are covered by Medicaid who were not before Obamacare kicked in October 1.
That's not a small number.
No, and you multiply that across the country. So I mean, I think it's significant that, and we talked, I think, the last time you were in about this war on poverty and ways that we can lift some people out of poverty. This aspect of Obamacare is one major way.
And the private aspects of it are about preventing people from falling into poverty.
Good point.
From wherever they are in their jobs or not, so that they don't have to go bankrupt or they don't have to go broke because they got sick. The question is, will the political calculus change for the states that have not expanded Medicaid? Like, what kind of pressure will there be in the future to change? Well, stories like this is pressure to change, but I don't think this story has the same legs that this story of conflict and dysfunction does, and that's the one you got about people losing their insurance. So
I would argue, though, that the more stories like this come out about the more states where more and more people are signing up and seeing the benefits and positive stories like this, there's going to be growing pressure on the people in these red states, on their governors to say, hey, put the politics aside, give us basic health coverage through Medicaid. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. Whether it's A-holes or Medicaid, your comments are welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Tuesday morning, January 21, waiting for the big snowstorm here in Washington, D.C., and waiting for Igor Volsky from Think Progress coming up at the top of the next hour. So Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post at this hour, HuffingtonPost.com. Peter, before we get back into it.
So on the snow. We do have a comment.
Here we
from
go,
Twitter.
back to the snow.
We have a comment from Twitter from someone who knows this very well in Minnesota.
All right.
Raising one eyebrow on Twitter.
Yeah, I said
Minnesota
earlier.
has their share of snow, and they know how to deal
Yeah,
with
they
it.
know how to deal
Yes,
with it.
they do.
All right. So here's the comment. Oh, Bill, we in Minnesota know the snow sweet spot is between 32 and 40 degrees. In fact, the warmer it is, the closer to 40 it is, the more snow you're actually going to get.
But wait a minute. Capital Weather Gang downgraded their inch total based on the fact that it was warmer, right? Or was there some sort of high pressure low?
This is from a Minnesotan. So I don't know if maybe the Capital Weather Gang is saying it's going to get above that 40-degree sweet spot.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to mess with it. But like the 37, 38-degree range that we're in right now will not stop the snow from coming, according to a Minnesotan.
Can I just thank this Minnesotan for not giving us this information in a haughty way?
Yeah.
That was very polite and helpful. And a lot of times here in Washington, because so many people are from other places, you get very haughty attitudes when the schools and the government close. Well, because where I'm from, this ain't snow.
But you
ain't seen no snow.
Yeah, but you know what? They're right. We are we are a bunch of wusses when it comes to snow.
Oh, God.
And I think I said earlier, we ought to grow up and be like Chicago, or grow up and be like Minneapolis, St. Paul, or grow up and...
And what does that mean? Not close stuff?
Yeah.
Just because the Bill Press show isn't closed?
No. Not shut down stuff, especially don't shut down stuff before there's one freaking flake.
This is the second pre-flake shutdown
I know.
of the season.
And it's going to be as flaky as the last one. We didn't get any snow the last time. I mean, it's ridiculous.
We're getting snow.
Right.
I think we're getting snow. I don't know if we're going to get 10 inches of snow like they said.
That's bold. Last time they said there would be snow, there was no snow.
I know.
All right. We'll see. Arthur, I have to ask you about... So, we're in another congressional break. I mean, because they worked so hard in the 2 weeks before the long Christmas break and the Martin Luther King break that they had to take another week off.
Yeah.
When they left for the Christmas holidays, they said, we know we left those people who were going to lose their unemployment insurance, we left them high and dry. But don't worry, as soon as we come back in January, that's the first thing we're going to do is extend those. Oops. Now we're off on another break, and now they have to say again, we didn't get that done before we left for Martin Luther King holiday. But as soon as we come back, we're going to pick it up again.
That is exactly what Harry Reid said.
I know. Why should we believe him?
Well, there's no reason not to believe
him. But why should we believe he's going to be able to get the votes?
That's the point. I mean, he said we'll have a vote. He didn't say they're going to get it done. And the way the Senate is handling this is very hard to understand. I was there on Tuesday watching in the press gallery as Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell dueled over amendments. Harry Reid had filled the tree, which is jargon for putting so many amendments in the way that Republicans can't get one through. And they were trying to get one of his amendments out of the way so they could get some amendments. So they were having this battle over amendments and not debating the merits of the policy.
Right.
And the actual reason for a lot of the obstruction was they were unhappy with how the tree had been filled. They want to chop down that tree. I don't think anyone can understand this. Immediately after they voted and it failed, I was on the phone with an unemployed woman in Virginia. And she said, I had just been watching that on C-SPAN. And she didn't understand a word of it. So this procedural stuff is just gibberish. It's just incantations and gibberish that no one can understand, except that their benefits are over. And this woman had said she had cancellations for her car insurance, her light bill, and her cable, which is, of course, how she gets internet, which is, of course, the only way you can apply for jobs these days. So that's what's happening on the home front. Meanwhile, they're talking in gibberish on the Senate floor. Your benefits aren't coming back. It really seems kind of unlikely.
Just very quickly, what percentage would you say the chances are that it's going to happen? Actually get passed?
I think
in the Senate. We're not talking about the House yet.
Okay, I was going to take a more holistic view. If you add the House in, the percentage goes down.
Right.
The Senate could get something done. There is enough overlap in the competing proposals.
Better than 50% chance the Senate will act?
I think it's more likely we'll have a huge snowstorm than the Senate will pass this.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of uncertainty in both of those.
All right, well, we'll find out next week how the Senate has done on unemployment insurance and how much snow we got, too. Arthur Delaney, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back here.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Press Show.
Igor Volsky from Think Progress up at the top of the next hour. Peter, what's going on?
Quick story here. This is starting to get a little bit more play in the state of Arizona. Governor Jan Brewer used her State of the State address to get rid of Child Protective Services. You know, Child Protective Services that has helped out a lot of kids.
Right.
She got rid of it. She's getting rid of it. They're dissolving it. There were 6,000 abuse cases that were misclassified in the state, and so the solution is not to sort those out and get it right and fix it, but to just get rid of the whole agency altogether, according to her.
She is such a disaster as a governor. I can't believe she got reelected, and she keeps doing stuff like this. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, who cares about protecting the children of Arizona, right? Yeah. I think the citizens do.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hello. It is Tuesday morning, January 21. Good to see you today, and welcome to the program, the Bill Press Show, that is. Coming to you live from our nation's capital here and our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where the House and the Senate are off extending their celebration of the Martin Luther King birthday, which we all remembered and marked yesterday. So on the news front, big snowstorm headed for Washington, D.C., supposedly later today, but already before one snowflake has even fallen, not one yet, they have already shut down schools in Washington, and the federal government is shut down in anticipation of a big snowstorm, which may or may not happen. What a bunch of weenies we have become. So typical of Congress. Get nothing done, and if they think there may be a problem, cancel everything. President and the first family out yesterday, marking Martin Luther King's birthday by volunteering their services at a homeless shelter, preparing burritos for the crowd there. Chris Christie facing more problems up in New Jersey, and so he has suddenly shifted his tactics. He no longer is blaming everything on his staff. Now he says since he's the only person who can possibly beat Hillary Clinton in 2016, this whole mess is a plot by the Democratic Party to undermine his candidacy in 2016, a plot by the Democratic Party with the help of the media, especially MSNBC. What total nonsense. Chris Christie looking more and more like a political hack. And in Switzerland today, talks get underway on resolving the Syrian civil war. Iran will not have a seat at the table after all. Lots to talk about today on all fronts, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. We're ready for the big snowstorm that's expected. Some people expect to hit Washington, D.C. about 3 hours from now. I am a non-believer. Good morning, everybody, because we haven't seen any snow yet. Great to see you this morning. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday, January 21. Good to have you with us on your local progressive talk radio station, including in places that are used to snow and can deal with snow and don't run and hide under the desk when it snows. Wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station, welcome, welcome, welcome. Those of you watching on Free Speech TV, good to have you with us as well. And on the video stream all around the globe at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. If it's Tuesday, it must be Igor Volsky from Think Progress, managing editor. Hello, Igor. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Hey, Bill,
Great
what
to see
do
you.
snowmen call their offspring? Children.
Well, that's all the time we have, Igor. It's always good to see you.
Thank you. Happy snow day, everyone.
That was wonderful delivery.
Thank you
really.
very much. The pause was very dramatic, I know.
I was just going to announce it. Too bad that Igor Volsky wasn't able to make it today. He couldn't get through the snow. Start over again. Yes.
Everyone's laughing. Look at that.
That's
We need
just
like
what the world needs. Another stand-up comic.
We need our version of Sandman Sims to come and like sweep you out the door and get you out of here, man.
Here we are, the team. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
there.
Hello, guys.
Good morning.
Yes, Alicia Cruz there on the phone. She's the only one who left. And
Hey, now.
and Cyprian Bolding.
She's going to tell her kids when she gets home.
Our videographer.
very
Yes,
clever.
indeed. Well, by the way, Lisa, we've been talking about the dysfunction in Congress lately, right? Okay. So here's this divorce counselor, actually, yesterday. I don't know where she made this comparison, but she's got it all figured out. Igor.
Just because you're not happy with each other doesn't mean you just totally neglect your family. And that's what's happening in Congress right now. They're neglecting the American people, which is their family.
That's a good point.
There it is.
Yeah.
And she said it's like parents and children, you know?
Congress is like, they're like the parents. And the American people are like the family or like the children. And they're not doing their job right now.
I think she's got it backwards. I think the Congress are the children.
Yeah.
I think the American
that's
people
right.
are the parents, right?
Yes.
And we're watching these little 5-year-olds, right, not get along and throw a snit fit, right?
We
when
put
they
them
don't
in
get
there.
their
We're
way.
responsible for what they're doing. I mean, there's pressure. You know, folks can change. Congress can change. DC change is possible in 2014.
Let's hope we get it, right? All right, we got lots and lots to talk about here with the Igor to begin this hour. A little bit later, Clinton Yates is going to be joining us from the Washington Post. Here is a friend of Bill, and we'll be talking with Dylan Byers, chief political correspondent for Politico. But first, other than the snow, Peter, what news do you have?
Just a couple of other stories making news. Happy birthday to Marie Whitlock of San Antonio, Texas.
Happy birthday.
She turned 102 years young on Sunday, living in San Antonio, Texas. Her daughter, Stella, spoke out and talked about her birthday because Marie is 102 years old.
Yeah.
She don't speak it so good. Her daughter said, here's the secret to her long life. She loves to go to McDonald's, Wendy's, H-E-B, which is the grocery store in Texas, and Walmart. Those are her 4 favorite places to eat.
Oh.
So she credits her long life to fast food. Just saying.
The secret to longevity in Texas.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Don't tell Michelle Obama.
Yeah, apparently. How about that? Bad news for Facebook. They someone took a look. iStrategy is a site that looks at...
I just have to say, my grandmother, God bless her, lived to 103. Smoked Camels and drank Budweiser beer until the day she died.
Oh,
There you
wow.
go.
Wow.
See? It's all in the denim.
Unfiltered count. I mean, the real. The real thing. Oh yeah.
Was she a trucker? I love this woman. I love it. iStrategy is a website that takes a look at took a look at some of the numbers that Facebook was reporting in terms of what their users are, and they have some very bad news for Facebook. As of January of 2014, Facebook has lost about 11 million young people who actually use Facebook. Facebook lost over 4 million high school-age users and nearly 7 million college-age users.
They're using Snapchat.
Since
That's right.
2011.
So they're using Snapchat,
in like
right?
3 years, they lost 11 million. They're using Snapchat. They're using Twitter more.
Snapchat is where it's at, kids. Join me on Snapchat. Of course, yes.
You on Snapchat?
Yes, at Igor Volsky on Snapchat. Please.
I genuinely do not understand Snapchat.
It's the fun and the thrill of getting a Snapchat and then it disappearing in seconds. You only have a couple seconds to look at it and then it's gone.
So why not just send something that I can read or look at
So what's the point?
The point is, it's a fun way to share information. It's not stored. There's no repository.
Do you have a job?
You see it for a second. It's momentary and it's done.
Do you have a job?
If someone sends me a picture, I want to keep it.
Well, it depends, and you can if you text message, but if you Snapchat, you can't. That's the fun and thrill of it. Well, you don't knock it until you try it.
I'm not sold. All right, so the Super Bowl is coming up in about 2 weeks.
You and Rand Paul.
You want to buy a ticket? If you want to buy a ticket to the Super Bowl, it's going to cost you. The average price to go to the Super Bowl is $3,721. That is the highest ticket price that it's been in about 5 years.
But you said average.
That's average. That's average. So here's the higher end of the average. If you want to get one commissioner's level climate controlled suite in MetLife Stadium, that is selling for $1.019 million.
Whoa.
Over $1 million.
And then the traffic to just get into the stadium in New Jersey these days. Woo!
Yeah, right.
Not even going to get into that seat in time.
And honestly, if you go to the Super Bowl, you're going to miss the best part, which are the commercials. You don't even get to see those. It's not fun to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, I fast forward the game and watch the commercials.
There you go. All right, now Igor, we got to start with the most important question of all. You were born in Russia, correct?
I was.
So, is it safe to go to Sochi?
Whew. Well, I personally, if I
could
go, I would go. I think for me, the threat really is they're moving all of these security folks to Sochi. I mean, it's going to be tight. The problem, though, is they have to come from somewhere. So they're coming from other places in Russia, I assume. And so the danger to me is maybe some kind of violence in Russia proper. If they can't get to Sochi, they could get somewhere else because, security is going to be shifted. And you saw, this weekend, lawmakers saying they're worried they wouldn't send their families there.
I know.
It doesn't bode very well. It doesn't bode very well for the games.
All the talk about, there's always talk about problems with security at any big event, even the Super Bowl, right? And other Olympics too, particularly since September 11th. But this one, all the talk has been about, maybe because it's in Russia, about fear of something happening. And the Russians have been putting this out too. Like the latest report is about this so-called Black Widow bomber they think could already be in Sochi.
And let's be honest, it doesn't take all that much to pull off a successful attack. It really doesn't. You have to have a willing person, a relatively easy bomb that if you know how to make, you can make and conceal, and then...
So would you go?
I would. I love the games. I love the winter games. I personally would go. Yes.
All right. There you go. If you had any questions, take it from our Russian expert.
Russian correspondent.
Igor Volsky, Russian correspondent. President Obama, long-awaited speech on NSA reforms on Friday. I watched the entire speech. I must admit I was puzzled by exactly the difference to me between his rhetoric about the importance of intelligence and the necessity of balancing collecting intelligence with protecting our privacy and the actions that he announced. And I was pleased to see that Think Progress was on the job and said, okay, here's what he did and here's what he didn't do. Run us through it.
Well, this was something that didn't please anyone, which I think he kind of hit the sweet spot in some way. You have civil libertarians saying it's not going far enough. You have people who really support this program saying if you curtail this program, it's going to lead to greater, to some kind of security threat to the United States. So he did basically three major things. He said that for the NSA to tap into the database that They collect all of this metadata. You're going to need a court order. So no more system where only 3 people know and you have to have a supervisor sign off. A court order if you want to tap in to the program. And you have to convince the court that this is related to an ongoing terror case. He also limited the inquiries into certain individuals. So if you're targeting person A, you can't go through you can't get to that person through someone who's more than 2 steps removed. So if you're going after...
It used to be
3, yes.
Yeah.
Now it's 2 different hops. And then another big change, I don't know if this is the biggest, but a big change that a lot of people have been asking for is that when you're in this secret court, there's only the government side. There's no one advocating on behalf of privacy. And so he said that in certain cases, in certain significant and novel cases, is the term he used, there's going to be a privacy expert in front of the secret court making the case for privacy. The big unanswered question, and this is where a lot of the legislation that is in front of Congress is now focusing on, is where will all of this data be housed? Because some people say maybe it should be the phone companies, although the phone companies don't really want to do it, if you ask them. Should it be the government? And that's where he said, we're going to let this Congress decide, and if Congress can come up with some kind of solution, I'll consider it.
So in other words, on that big question, he really punted.
And on the big question of...
meaning where it
stored.
resides.
Yeah, he punted. Yeah. But also the big question for a lot of the American technology companies is how this idea of providing information to the government hurts their brand. It hurts their business.
Yeah, they're not happy.
In the world, they're not happy at all, and that he didn't address at all. He's been talking to, leaders in this field for a long time. He's heard their concerns in California and elsewhere, but he didn't address that particular problem for American businesses.
And several civil libertarian organizations have pointed out that you mentioned. So there's going to be a panel of public advocates who will sort of rotate in and out of the FISA court, making the arguments in support of privacy at any rate. But it's still going to be a secret court.
Yes.
So we won't really know what arguments they make or how effective they are. And the judges in that secret court, in the FISA court, are all appointed by the Chief Justice of the United States and the President. His presidential panel recommended that he change that. He did not change that. So when I look at it, I sort of come to the same conclusion. And what troubles me about, I guess what I want to say is, James Clapper, former head of the NSA, General Clapper, came out and said that basically the president didn't make any changes at all, that it's basically the status quo. Well, if that's the case...
Yeah, and it's
missed opportunity.
It's a president whose rhetoric and whose action is far removed from candidate Obama, who, of course, when he was running, when this was a program under Bush, and now it has more safeguards than Bush, we should be clear, but someone who is far more concerned about the privacy aspects. Now that he's president, that balance between privacy and security seems to have shifted somewhat.
And of course, I also thought that he went out of his way to slam Edward Snowden again, even though we wouldn't even be having this discussion if it were not for Edward Snowden. We mentioned, I was looking for an article, the tech industry finds his NSA reforms insufficient. USA Today, Susan Page, our friend from USA, is reporting this morning that 45% of Americans say that Snowden's disclosures have helped the public. Have helped us.
Certainly started a conversation.
43% oppose. And most Americans now disapprove of what NSA is doing. And 73% of Americans who watch the president's speech say it's not going to make any difference.
Yeah.
But so public attitude on this, now that we know what NSA is doing, is really shifting.
It really has. Snowden, I believe, is going to respond to these changes either this week or next. I remember either in some kind of address or in some kind of written statement. So we're going to hear from him. I don't think he's going to be satisfied, as a lot of the liberal civil rights groups aren't. But look, Obama is slowly being pushed in the direction of greater privacy. Will he do more? Maybe. I thought it was a good start that his panel that he chose provided all of these changes that a lot of people thought were good ideas. The question is, what can the public now do to kind of push him more in that direction?
Keep the pressure on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Igor Volsky here from Think Progress. Your call's welcome. You heard the president's speech. You've seen the commentary about it. And as Igor said, nobody seems to be happy with it, but does it really make any difference as the kind of protection that we need against this more and more intrusive government? Rand Paul doesn't think so. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Join the conversation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Washington Post is a friend of Bill in the next hour. In studio with us, Igor Volsky, managing editor of Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. Igor, we can't move on without. Oh, but first, Peter's got a real
breaking news
story.
Breaking news story. The White House has announced that the president has some travel plans at the end of March. He is going to travel to the Netherlands, to Belgium, and on March 27th, he's going to travel to the Vatican to meet with Pope Francis.
They've been trying to arrange that,
it's
right?
It's a done
so
deal. March
story.
27th is the day. The president and the Pope meeting in the Vatican.
Ooh, hashtag Pope-Bama. I like it.
Pope-Bama. I like it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, there we go. Right, and they will be talking about income inequality.
Yes, indeed.
Right.
Yeah, right up front.
All right,
Yep.
indeed. And we want
They have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do. They do. We, Igor, it's so glad to see it, and we want to congratulate you, of course. But you didn't tell us about this great honor. I've had to find out from the New York Times here. I saved this little ad from the New York Times on Sunday. Appearing soon at the Metropolitan Opera, Prince Igor.
Yeah.
Prince Igor. That's
the blogger formerly known as Prince Igor. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
We knew him when he was just a serf.
Well, you know.
Right.
You start with the Bill Press show and you move on to greater things. So what can I say?
To the Met. To
the Met. Exactly.
All right. Martin Luther King Day yesterday. We have not quite achieved the dream.
We haven't.
Says Think Progress. We just said about
I say so dismissive.
Right.
We haven't. Let me I'm a prince now, but some people are still having. Martin Luther King. I mean, I have achieved the dream. Let's be honest.
Of course.
Fulfilled. Yeah.
Go any higher.
Well, there's King Bill. I mean, still working.
No,
still working on that.
No, for you, it's Czar.
That's right. Yeah.
Czar. I think we're out of time.
Still working a living wage on more better desegregated schools, fair voting for everybody, getting rid of all these voting ID requirements. More to do. It's not just racial inequality; it's economic equality as well.
I'll tell you what, and that's what Martin Luther King. That was his other great passion: civil rights and economic justice. It's important to remember that. Since we ran out of time, we will just send everybody to thinkprogress.org. How's that?
Good idea. Make it your homepage.
All right.
This
and Snapchat
is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Okie doke, 33 minutes after the hour. Tuesday morning, January 21. Here we go. The Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning, waiting for the big snowstorm in Washington, D.C. I don't think it's going to happen. We're brought to you today, whether it does or not, brought to you today in part by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, formerly the Sheet Metal Workers Union, now combined, merged with the Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, you bet, under President Joseph Nigro, and you put all those together and you get the SMART Union. That's their website. Check it out at smart-union.org. I like that. The SMART Union. Yeah. People are smart to join a union. Of course, President Obama making news on a couple of fronts the last few days. First of all, we just talked with Igor Volsky about his big NSA speech on Friday, which I felt fell very short of where he should go in terms of reforming the NSA. Jon Stewart, his first show since the speech last night, had a little fun with it, saying that the president, he had a lot to say, and he started at the very beginning. Here's Jon Stewart.
Well, last Friday, it was finally time for President Barack Obama to address the issues at the NSA. He had a very difficult needle to thread. How to acknowledge the American people's very real concerns about privacy while not upsetting people who apparently know everything about all of us. How to make substantial policy changes while also not really doing that. How would he accomplish this delicate dance?
At the dawn of our republic.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right. It's going to be one of these. Let's do it.
That's so perfect. I know. And you know, it seemed that way too. That was Professor Obama starting out. As I said, if you were on the campus of Georgetown University and you're in a big lecture hall and the professor comes for the first day of the new semester, and the first class, and the subject is about intelligence gathering and how to get the proper balance, and the professor is going to give the whole kind of sweep of history. That's That's the speech that we heard on Friday.
The dawn
and that's where it starts. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the dawn of civilization.
Time to break out the Red Bull.
Seriously.
Yeah, indeed. That was one of the longest and most boring speeches that Obama has ever given. But the other way the president's made news lately, more news that we can talk about, is an incredibly revealing interview that he gave to David Remnick, who's the editor, of course, of the New Yorker magazine, has done a phenomenal job with the magazine. And Remnick had, I saw him a couple of months ago at the White House and chatted with him. He was there for one day of many that he spent in the Oval Office with President Obama. He also flew with him on Air Force One. He had basically unheard of access to the president and was able to get into a whole wide range of topics. You can go online at newyorker.org and read the whole thing. I'm about halfway through it. Didn't get my magazine yet this week. But it's up online. And the president's made news on a couple of things. First of all, on football. Remnick asked him about the fact that as a sports fan, he watches a lot of football. How does he square that with the fact that we're hearing so much about the problems with head injuries and concussions with NFL players and the whole thing about the big lawsuit? And the president said, well, first of all, he said if he had a son, he would not let him play pro football. At a certain age, you can't stop him, but he would certainly discourage him from playing pro football. And yet the president did admit he still watches pro football on television because he said the NFL players, quote, know what they're doing. They know what they're buying into. It is no longer a secret. I'm not sure some of those players know what they're buying into. I still think at that age, they could discount the possibility. It's happened to others, but it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's so much uncharted territory there.
It's certainly not the case that all these players that we've heard about who have had serious brain injuries, and some have taken their lives because of it, went into it saying, I know I'm going to get a concussion, but I don't care. I love football so much, it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
No. They thought they were wearing protective gear and wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. And it's you made a good point yesterday when you talked about, I think that a lot of people realize that when you play football, there is a very good chance that you could get hurt. A busted knee or a torn ACL or a collarbone situation or even something as serious as a neck injury, right? Like you go into that and you know that that's a possibility. But it's the long-term things that these young guys that get into it. It's like 35 years old. That's ancient for football. So you've got these young guys that are out there flying around at speeds that you've never seen before, and they don't realize the long-term damage that they might be doing to their brains because you can't see it.
Yeah. Also, the president talked about the marijuana. And it was very, very interesting because the president said that he considers it a bad habit, but, he added, he doesn't think it's any more dangerous than alcohol. The problem the president has with marijuana is that the enforcement of and the police action, prosecution of people for smoking pot is so unfairly applied, and poor people and minority kids are much more likely to end up spending jail time because of smoking pot than middle-class kids or wealthier kids. And he said that's the problem with marijuana. But the idea that the president would admit that he doesn't think it's any more dangerous than alcohol, in other words, smoking a beer, drinking a beer, smoking a joint is basically for him the same for young people. To me, that's almost, that comes as close maybe as a president could ever get to saying, yeah, I think marijuana ought to be legalized in every one of the 50 states because nobody's talking about going back to prohibition, right? So if we don't have prohibition for alcohol, then why should we have it for pot? If you follow the logic of where the president is, you've got to end up, I think, with full legalization of marijuana.
And he's come a long way.
Which is a pretty bold thing to say.
Yeah, he's come a really long. I mean, he's had questions about this before. I remember in his first year or maybe his second year when he had this big town hall and he took questions from YouTube and things like that. That was he opened up and said, the number one question we got was marijuana legalization. Will it ever happen? He said, guys, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about it. 5 years ago.
Right. So, and the president on Pro Football on pot 866-55-PRESS. On legalizing gay marriage, the president told David Remnick, he said, "It's fair to say that I may have come to that realization slightly before I actually made the announcement in favor of it in 2012. And actually, back in, and the president, to give him credit, is the first president to come out and fully support marriage equality or same-sex marriage. In fact, he had first come out in support of legalization back in 1996 when he was in the United States Senate. And then when he was running for president, he changed his 96 was no. He was still in in the state Senate in Illinois at that time. But when he got to the Senate and when he was running for president, he, remember, was not in favor of marriage equality and said he was considering it. And we heard it was evolving, and he evolved and evolved and evolved. It took a couple of years, and finally in 2012, he came out in favor of it. He said he might have done it a little earlier. I think he would have done a little earlier. He's afraid of the politics of it. And I think finally the part of the interview that really struck me is he talked about the power of the presidency, and what he has come to realize are the limits of the power of the presidency. That, you may think it is the most powerful position in the world, but there's only so much you can do yourself. So, a lot of it you depend on Congress, you depend on your allies, you depend on the courts going along with it. He said, quote, "As president, you are essentially a relay swimmer in a river full of rapids, and that river is history. You don't start with a clean slate, and the things you start may not come to full fruition on your timetable, but you can move things forward." So like saying, I do what I can, but everything I start is not going to get completed maybe during my administration or my lifetime, but maybe you can get some things going.
That's a really enlightened thing for the president, a sitting president, to say. And realize.
And it's very realistic, I think, as to what you can do and what you can't do, which is not an excuse for not trying, and he's not putting it up that way either. Anyhow, check out that interview in the New Yorker. Very fascinating stuff. From President Obama to David Remnick. It's at NewYorker.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says The business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go, 11 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Tuesday, January 21. Again, Clinton Yates from the Washington Post here is a friend of Bill in the next hour. Peter?
Just a quick comment from Twitter on the pot issue, where the president said it's no more dangerous than alcohol. G. Kane says, just like with same-sex marriage, unfortunately, POTUS is a follower on the pot issue. He's not leading it.
I think that's true, but I also think it's true. He's leading it when it comes to most American politicians.
Right.
You tell me you tell me a member, I don't know of any member of the United States Senate, except maybe Bernie Sanders, right, who would say what the president said about pot and alcohol, they're the same. And if one's legal, implied with what the president said, if one is legal, the other should be as well. I mean, so on that issue, I don't think you find many politicians out in
He's
front.
certainly, the pendulum has swung completely in the other direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ryan is out in Chicago on with another comment. Hey, Ryan, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'm going 5 miles an hour on the Kennedy, so I'm really enjoying myself.
So why? Because
of
snowy? Because of snow or just traffic?
Well, it's a combination of both. I'm looking at this huge line of lake effect clouds that apparently is just slowing everything down, and they have the express lane closed into the city, so it's just...
Oh, I got it. All right. Well, it gives you and me more time to be together, Ryan.
This is true. So I'd like to just kind of point out that I don't think the president's right, but I think it's because, and you're going to, it's basically because how many marijuana-related deaths do you hear about every year compared to alcohol? It's like, I don't think it's the same. I think it's much less harmless than alcohol.
Good point. Yeah.
And I think Peter might have stolen my thunder yesterday, but seeing that the two teams that are in the Super Bowl are from states that legalize marijuana, maybe they're going to resurrect the Bud Bowl.
Oh, the Bud Bowl, right.
It.
I do.
Remember the Bud Bowl?
Yeah, hell yeah.
But you know what? It is. Don't you think it's great that it's just too bad that they're not playing the game in one of those two states, Ryan?
I know.
Let's play touch football.
Well, you think they overcharge for beer at a football game? You imagine what they charge for a bag of marijuana.
Mark up on a spliff at a game,
yeah, right. And also, I got to tell you, it would be the most mellow crowd in history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, they should give some to Sherman there, the guy who the cornerback.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about him with Clinton Yates in the next hour for sure.
Yeah,
he's getting a lot of grief. Hey, Ryan, good to hear from you. Hope your commute improves or continues to go mellow there.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh yeah, sure.
Why not?
Let's remember that marijuana is a plant. Everything else is cultivated or cooked up in a lab. This is here naturally. If you believe in God, He put it on this planet for a reason. Take advantage.
Maybe I think I figured out why traffic is moving so slow in Chicago there, man. You're awfully evangelical about the herb.
I like it. The bumper sticker on Ryan's car says, "God gave us pot, smoke it." You're right. I think
he might be the only one going 5 miles per hour.
I think there's some other factors going on than the fact that Ryan's car is moving so slowly into Chicago. Right. There we go. Pardon me. So far, as we know, even though we expect to be buried in snow any minute here in Washington, so far as we know, it is still a work day at the White House, and we'll tell you what the president has on his schedule at this moment, at any rate, when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms: cubism, symbolism, futurism, constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form, and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. He suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
Hey, I know these first 2 hours have been very, very good this morning, but like the wedding feast at Cana, we always save the best wine till last. In the next hour, Clinton Yates from the Washington Post will be here as a friend of Bill, and then Dylan Byers, the chief media critic for Politico, will be along to talk about Chris Christie's allegation that MSNBC is trying to ruin him. Yeah, he's spent so much time on MSNBC, it's not funny. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Stay with us for hour number 3 and go to the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
So the federal government has been officially shut down, but the White House is still, at this moment, as far as we know, planning on a full schedule. The president and the vice president get their daily briefing today at 11:20. Follow up, they meet with the President's Commission on Election Administration, all about voting rights. That's on the schedule. And then the President and the Vice President meet later this afternoon with Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, and we have a briefing scheduled with Jay Carney at 1 o'clock today. We'll see if all of that changes because we're expected to get maybe up to 8 inches of snow starting at 10 o'clock this morning, East Coast time. I don't believe it because it's 37 degrees outside, and to me, that's not snow weather. Peter?
This is a fascinating story. The European Space Agency, 2.5 years ago, launched a what's called the Rosetta. It is a satellite that they sent up to go and track down and chase a comet. And the goal here is they're going to launch out a little probe that's going to go to this comet, and drill in and take samples of it, right?
Yeah.
2.5 years ago. They launched it, and then they shut it down to save energy because you just can't have this thing traveling through space using energy. Well, yesterday, they woke it up.
They fired it up again?
Successfully started it back up. It's on track. They expects to hit this comet in June, and the mission will resume. But there was a big question whether or not it would get powered back up. It's up.
Remember that song, Catch a Falling Star, and put it in your pocket? This is it. Save it for a rainy day.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Let it snow, let it snow. That's what they say. I don't believe it. Good morning, everybody. We are waiting for the big snowstorm here in Washington, D.C., and coming to you live all across this great country of ours, coast to coast from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Great to see you this morning. Tuesday, January 21. Welcome to the program and to all the news of the day, such as it is from Washington, D.C., around the country and around the globe. Good to see you this morning and to help us understand what's going on and get right into the heart of all the big issues of the day. Clinton Yates, columnist for the Washington Post, here in the studio with us this morning. Hello, Clinton.
Hello.
Happy New Year. I haven't seen you.
Happy New Year to you too, Bill. Peter, everybody.
Hey. I don't know whether I've seen you since you sat in the big chair here. And
I've seen you once. You don't remember? I was
frequent guest and sometime guest host of the Bill Press Show.
Future
yes,
guest
indeed.
host.
Yes, and future. Past and future.
How's everybody doing?
We're doing good. We're glad that you wore your snow
I did.
your
It's
snow
my-
gear this morning.
It's
His
like the old
skiing sweater.
Nintendo 8-bit graphics.
I like that.
You know, Peter knows what I'm talking
like
about.
that.
It's
I
the
love
old
that.
school Winter Olympics game or whatever that game was.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely.
Winter
So-
Olympics coming up, by the way.
Yeah.
That is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So he's got his snow gear on. He's ready for it.
Speaking of which, we got for Christmas, the kids got this Wii U, right? The new Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
And they got the Winter Olympics game on that, and I'm like, you guys don't even know.
Not even the
You
same.
guys don't even know.
That 8-bit glory
Yeah,
is
this
just
is
not
too
there.
much.
Right.
All right. And the team here joining Clinton and me this morning, and all of you, of course, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey.
Good morning.
Alicia Cruz there. Your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS. She'll take care of you, put you on the air. And Cyprian Bolding, keeping us looking good on the video cam because, of course, in addition to being on your local progressive talk radio station, you can follow our video stream. Yeah, that's it. Hello, at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yesterday, of course, a lot of Washington was shut down. By the way, all of Washington is now already shut down today because
Snow
they
day.
think there may be a little snow.
Could be.
So we don't wait for it to hit here. We just shut down everything ahead of time.
That's
which
called
is
preparation,
insane.
by the way.
I have
No,
to say,
it's called insanity.
No, Bill. Okay, listen. Go ahead. Pardon me.
And timidity.
I have a lot to say about this.
Here's what I will say. I remember when we were working on this show, and a monster snowstorm hit at around 2 p.m. And I left just before the snow hit. And I remember when I was driving into work the next morning at like 4:30 a.m., all those people who were still stuck in traffic from the afternoon before because they didn't shut down the office.
Yes, and
when a bad snowstorm hits, it's no joke.
People died that day. Like, people were stranded in their cars. And my stance is this. I wrote something about this, which is that here's the deal. When you combine the way that the jurisdictional setup works, and this is hyper-local for people listening, I apologize, but because you've got D.C., Maryland, and Virginia that all have different departments of transportation, they all do different things, right? And you've got the second worst traffic in America in a small space. When snow happens, it's legitimately a problem.
Here's the problem with what you say. I've seen this happen like 5 times. They do all of this, and then it doesn't freaking snow.
Well, okay, but that's better than the alternative. That's better than the alternative.
No, it's not.
Don't forget, not everybody gets to walk to work.
I apologize.
The big reveal.
I apologize for living so close, okay?
We can bring a sled over for you and we'll pull you.
We'll send the dogs out for you tomorrow to sled you over.
Do you realize how silly we look to people who really live in snow country?
Well, let them live where they live. I mean,
people who deal with this all the time.
That's fine. I mean,
they laugh up their sleeve at us in Chicago and in Minneapolis and in Milwaukee and in Boston and Niagara Falls.
That's fine. Those are cities in their own states with their own operations. This is a multi-jurisdictional scenario that is not easy to handle.
You see?
Sorry. It's a traffic thing. It's not a snow thing, is what it is.
You mentioned the weather, and there it goes.
Yeah, right.
We got lots to talk about with Clinton, and Dylan Byers will be joining us a little bit later to talk about whether Chris Christie's right when he says all of his problems stem from the fact that MSNBC hates him. That's what it's all about. I'll get into it, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news, and an update to a story we had yesterday about the Jamaican bobsled team, the 2-man bobsled team. They qualified to go to the Olympics. The only problem was
they raised the
you
money.
need about $80,000 to get the equipment and travel and all that stuff.
Tell me they made it.
Good news, they've made it and then some.
Great.
They had 2 different sites that were raising money. Okay, so Crowd Site is one. They raised $113,000 there.
Oh, perfect.
And on Indiegogo, they've raised nearly $40,000. So they're well ahead of what they needed.
So these guys are stopping in Paris on the way home and just and spending all the money they had left over.
All the skim on top. They can throw a hell of a party with it.
This is a 30 for 30 waiting to happen right here.
Totally,
I'm so excited for this.
That's great. Love it.
Could Maryland be the next state to legalize marijuana? Well, if some lawmakers had their way, it would be okay to regulate and tax marijuana that people can possess, use, and grow recreationally in the state of Maryland. Legislation was brought up late last week. It's called the Marijuana Control Act of 2014. Maryland could be the next state. And as a resident of Maryland,
I was going to say, don't you live in Maryland?
Bring it on, man.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Go, Maryland, go. Absolutely. I mean, Maryland's going to have to race because Rhode Island's out. The New Hampshire legislature voted to make it legal. I don't think the Senate has yet, but the House has. But Maine, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, it's going to be a race to the finish line here.
I just wish Maryland could have gotten it done before the Super Bowl because, I mean, think about the epic Super Bowl parties we could have gone to.
The Bud Bowl.
The Bud Bowl.
That's zing. Totally. The Smoke Bowl or some other.
The Smoke Bowl. There you go. And Bill, 2013, they did a sort of a recap of the worst passwords that people used in 2013. It's a consulting firm, a security consulting firm called Stricture Group. The worst passwords that you could use. There's a new number one. Because for years, the number one worst password was password.
Password.
People were just using password. The new number one.
Why is it the worst? Because it's so easy.
It's so easy to hack.
Oh, got it.
And it's the most widely used.
Because it doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
So the number one, it's up from last year, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh my goodness!
Don't use that as your password.
People are beyond lazy.
Don't use that as your password. Don't use QWERTY. The first 6 letters on the keyboard. Some people were using 111111.
I'm the kind of person where if I could implant a chip into my wrist that allowed me to never ever type a password in ever again, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Bring on the new world order, man. I'd give it up.
I forget them all the time.
That's my problem. I try to use the same one, but sometimes you can't because there are not enough. Sometimes you need letters and numbers.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
Yeah.
And they tell you don't use the same one forever. You say, well, how the hell am I supposed to remember?
If every site requires a password, I'm going to use the same one. I know.
It's insane. All right. Okay. All right, Peter, thank you. Thanks for getting us all worked up there. So, Glenn, I want to start. Yesterday, the celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday, and this fascinating discovery of a tape that was made years and years and years ago where Martin Luther King talked about John F. Kennedy as a senator making a phone call to try to help get him out of prison. John F. Kennedy and his brother, Bobby. Here's what we released for the first time yesterday. Uncanny.
Now, it is true that Senator Kennedy did take a specific step. He was in contact with officials in Georgia during my arrest, and he called my wife, made a personal call, and expressed his concern and said to her that he was working and trying to do something to make my release possible. His brother, who at that time was his campaign manager, also made direct contact with officials and even the judge in Georgia, so that the Kennedy family did have some part. At least they expressed a concern, and they did have some part in the release.
Can I just say, as an audio
That's
file,
the first I've heard that. That is incredibly good, clean
Yeah,
audio. That is what I like to call FBI quality audio right there. I'm just saying, you've got to presume that at some point, because of all of the surveillance that's been done, you're going to find that these kind of things are going to get released all the time, at least, once the sort of long-term statute of limitations is ended on.
They found this in some attic somewhere where it had just been stored. It was a reel-to-reel, the old reel-to-reel thing.
Wow.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Just as an audio file, that is so amazing.
No, it's not
to listen
scratchy
to.
at all. But, and the Kennedys get it, to me, the first thing that struck me is how much he sounds like Joe Madison. If you know Joe Madison.
Yeah.
Black Eagle.
Or
Black
Joe
Eagle,
sounds
exactly.
like in the Black Eagle.
Shout
sounds
out to
like
Joe.
Him.
Yeah.
But, absolutely. But, the Kennedys got a bad rap for not really being committed to civil rights and as president. But this is before he was president, even in the Senate.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he did it for political reasons.
Yeah, it
but
was,
whatever. I
don't know. I guess it was fairly well known that publicly the Kennedys had problems with civil rights because of, from a simple PR standpoint, it was a difficult stance to take. But I don't know how many people ever believe that that's what they necessarily believed in their hearts. You know what I mean? I think that's the way a lot of people at the time probably felt. It was a difficult stance to take to be backing somebody like MLK at the time. And, anyway, the other thing I noted about that audio, by the way, Peter, speaking of as an audio file, was that you always hear these MLK recordings, and they're typically either him speaking in a church or at a speech. That seemed to be a rather casual context within which he was talking, and his cadence was it was a conversational cadence.
It sounds like he was maybe either talking to a reporter or to some of his supporters
or some confidant or somebody. But
it's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah,
I did a lot. I actually wrote a column about MLK Day.
I was going to ask your thoughts on what it all means today.
I went, for those that don't know, in D.C. there are 3 big things that are sort of named after the Reverend Doctor, as some call him. And there's a library that's downtown. Yep. There is the Avenue that's over in Southeast. And there's, of course, the Memorial. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I went to all 3 spots to just talk to people and, ask them what they thought about it today. Because my other stance on it is that, my position on it was that he would have been 85 last week. And to me, 85 is sort of the last date of life where you can sort of reasonably presume that he would have been around had he not been killed. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to, give or take or whatever, but 85 is
chances are he still would have been there, and
chances are, and he would have been able to look at what was going on in the world. And it was interesting to see the different things people had to say. At the library, I talked to a couple students who were local university students here at George Washington University, and they were working in a program that helps local kids read because, for whatever reason, the schools here, not always, and they were mentors and so forth. And they were just sort of like, one woman talked about how she really wants to apply the tenets of King's beliefs to the feminist cause, which was the nonviolence and the peace and the compassion and the understanding, because the way people look at feminism now is very much of a combative sort of stance, and it feels like a bad word in a lot of people's minds. And so that was interesting because she was 20, she was from Washington State, and she was very much about like, hey, as a feminist, this guy is very important to me because the way he went about trying to solve problems was very effective, And so there was that. I went to the memorial and I talked to an Indian family that had come over here in the 80s, and they were very, very very impressed with A, the memorial, and B, it was something that they really wanted to do. They were like, we came to D.C., we had to do this because, I don't know, they seemed like the kind of people that were just happy to sort of be in D.C. and the very sort of basic notion. And this is hard to understand when you don't live here, but you see memorials all the time in D.C. You know what I mean? And you sort of forget that like there is a magical quality to this in some people's minds. And when you get down there, I mean, this guy was like visibly moved by the notion that he was at the memorial and sort of yards, a couple hundred yards away from where the March on Washington happened. And he was, he got sort of emotional talking to me about it. And it was wild. And then, then of course I went over to MLK Avenue over in Southeast where, again, the world is completely different from the world that a lot of other people live in, especially east of the river in D.C. And it's just, it's the kind of thing where I talked to a guy and he was like, look, King's dream is nowhere close to being realized. And what has happened in this country since he died, specifically in D.C., because the riots happened in D.C. after MLK was murdered as a result of various things that happened. And he was just really disappointed. I mean, he was a sad guy when he started talking about it. And I felt bad. He was a guy that you would presume would have been a contemporary on some level with MLK, and he was not happy with what he saw at all. It was somewhat depressing, honestly.
Right. And I thought it was very important that the President bombed the first family that went out, for public service. They're going to this basically a homeless shelter yesterday, helping make burritos. Right.
Yeah.
But just showing that, I mean, it's not just a day to forget what it's a day to remember what King was all about.
Right.
And to kind of try to do your own thing in some way, whatever way you can.
It'll be interesting to see how his legacy works after. Well, I mean, I don't mean to be sort of morbid about this, but after the generation that he was contemporaries with passes on, you know what I mean? Because there's so much that's caught up in his specific personality, in the history and the remembrance and so forth, as opposed to just what he was sort of about and how that applies to the rest of the world. But again, MLK was an incredible person in American history. There's no doubt about it.
Clinton Yates with us here this Tuesday morning on the Bill Press Show. Your questions, your comments, your reflections on Martin Luther King birthday anniversary yesterday. 866-55-PRESS, and we got a lot more to cover, including Richard Sherman stirring things up.
He's the best in the league, kids. You know why? Because he told you as much.
We'll talk about it when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour. If you weren't here with us yesterday, we talked a lot about the NFL playoffs on Sunday. Clinton Yates joins us this morning from the Washington Post. Clinton, you get your chance to give us your take on Richard Sherman's big... well, he just stirred things up after the game, right? So he grabs that pass from Michael Crabtree.
Tips it.
Okay.
Perfectly.
Perfect.
To his teammate.
He did.
One of the best plays I've ever seen by a cornerback.
And then he was proud of what he had done, as he told a reporter afterwards. Here it is again.
Final play, take me through it.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me.
Who was talking about you?
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best. Or I'm going to set it for you real quick. LOB.
Hold on, though. I've listened to this a ton of times, by the way, at this point. And my favorite part of the interview is when, after he makes his initial boast, which is tremendous, she says, "Who was talking about you?" And if you look at him, he looks at her, and he's as if to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't make this clear." And he just goes, "Crabtree." He says in a much calmer tone, he says, "Crabtree." And then he proceeds back to screaming, and you're like, that was so great. He acknowledged the question. He's like, "Oh, the lack of clarity, pardon me," and then goes back to the yelling.
I was referring to Mr. Crabtree.
Exactly. It's so great.
But what was wrong? Seriously, what was wrong with it?
Nothing.
Right? I mean, why is he getting so slammed for being such a racist or something?
I've said this before, which is that people can't deal with loud, screaming black men. There is the plantation politics of this country force people to believe that anytime somebody of color, specifically a male, finds himself in a situation in which they are acting in a way that is unpredictable, that it is by default scary. Those two things should not be conflated, okay?
The thug word that was thrown out there a lot.
Ridiculous. It's simple human emotion. That's all it is, If you're scared of that, you should investigate why you're scared of that, not why somebody is behaving that way.
Well said, yeah. And, he was proud of himself, right?
Yes.
It was moments after the play.
Right. Yeah. And it was a tremendous play.
He's the best.
And saved it, right? Saved the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Sealed the Super Bowl.
All right.
This
Dylan Byers
is
joining us
the
next.
Bill Press Show. Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour. It's Tuesday morning, January 21. We are waiting for the snow here in Washington, D.C., but just in case, we have already shut down the entire federal government and the entire city, except for the Bill Press Show. That's the only thing going on here in the nation's capital. We're ready for it. Clinton Yates made his way through the non-snow this morning from the Washington Post, joining our team here. And we're just talking before the break about Richard Sherman and about the big game between the 49ers and the Seahawks on...
the Broncos and the Seahawks.
The Broncos. We're talking about
the 49ers.
Previously happened.
Yes.
I got
on Sunday, and looking forward to the Super Bowl. Some people take their sports very seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know guys from Seattle. I mean, he is just over the moon this morning. Dylan Byers from Politico, chief media critic, and right now chief Super Bowl fan, I guess. Hello, Dylan. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
All right. So, what do you think? Broncos, go Broncos, huh?
Yeah, right. Go Broncos. I got to tell you, I see the Seahawks taking this one, and I see them taking it in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be a really great game.
Where do you think Richard Sherman ranks on the cornerbacks in the league list?
Is he the best? I don't know, but he's certainly up there. I mean, that was what they call a game changer in Washington. That was a big play.
Yeah. Mark Halperin could write a whole book about it, huh?
He could write a whole book about it.
Yeah.
I also got to say, I have to, as long as you have Clinton Yates in the studio, I have to hand it to him for offering a solid defense of Sherman on CNN the other day, because obviously that's been generating a lot of discussion, and I think I think most of it is bunk.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. It was, I mean, it's a serious matter. I mean, people like to throw away the notion of how portrayal works, not just in terms of politics, but in terms of pop culture and in life. And it's like, look, there's nothing wrong with this guy. He was yelling because he was excited. That's fine.
Right.
There's, that's really all there is to it.
I also got to say, at a certain, in the NFL, they started penalizing folks for being too celebratory after they scored a touchdown. And I got to say, if you're playing in the NFL, with all of those Americans watching you and all of that pressure, and you can manage to score a touchdown against a heavy defense, I think you deserve to do whatever you want. I think you can climb up the goalpost, if you want to. I mean, do whatever you want. You've earned it. So
the 3 or 4 times that I scored an NFL touchdown.
Speaking from experience,
I was very, very polite and quiet, and I just gave a nice little nod to the defense and walked off the field. That's how you do it.
All right. Very, very good. So Dylan, I got to ask you about suddenly Chris Christie, who started out with this whole scandal, responding to the scandal by saying, this was terrible, and my aides double-crossed me, and they hurt the people in New Jersey, and blaming his staff and firing a couple of people. Now he's sort of switched gears, and now he's a la Spiro Agnew, blaming the media, especially MSNBC. And he said, they're the ones who are keeping the scandal alive and trying to take me down. I thought he was sort of MSNBC's kind of favored guest.
I thought he was
for a while.
boys with Joe and Mika, right? I'm confused.
What's
going on here?
Yeah, there was a very interesting relationship between the network and Christie in that they both needed each other. Christie needed MSNBC because it made him accessible as a bipartisan candidate. MSNBC liked Christie because it gave them a Republican that they could actually have on the air in a non-confrontational way. He's also just sort of a larger-than-life personality, which I think they loved and was probably good for programming. I will say it is surprising how quickly Christie went from being concerned about those folks stuck in traffic to being concerned about himself. But what
that didn't take long, really.
Right. I mean, it didn't take long at all. But what he said about MSNBC is not necessarily wrong. I mean, he said, he said, quote, they're a partisan network. He said, quote, they're almost gleeful in their efforts attacking me. He called it a feeding frenzy. I mean, I think all of those things are true. I think MSNBC has a liberal base. It loves scandal, and it loves scandal when it happens to a Republican. This is really juicy because nothing translates to the average American more than a traffic jam. So this sells well, and I think they're doing well. And I also think one caveat to sort of the coverage of the Christie-MSNBC relationship that's important to remember is Christie was a friend of Morning Joe and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, and he was at least respected by, say, Chris Matthews. But it's not as if he was a friend of the entire network. He was not necessarily a friend of Rachel Maddow. He was not a friend of Lawrence O'Donnell. He was not even a friend of Chris Hayes. So I think you have to parse what's going on there.
The average American probably looks at a guy like Chris Christie as one of the least Republicans out there. Do you think that, sort of blasting MSNBC is in part somewhat of a political play on his part to get further back in the better graces of Republicans who might have looked at him as being potentially too bipartisan?
Right. Yeah. No. I think that's spot on. I mean, if you're looking ahead at 2016 and you're confident about what you can do in the general, but you're worried about the primaries, there is no greater liberal deity to whip than the MSNBC brand. It's a brilliant way of sort of proving. If in the early days he proved his bipartisan bona fides by talking to MSNBC, he's now proving his conservative bona fides by bashing MSNBC.
Sure. But isn't this kind of, let's be honest, isn't this sort of what we do? I mean, in terms of as a profession, we love to build people up. We get our favorites. Look at John McCain. I mean, you could go through the list, build them up, and then the first opportunity, tear them down.
Well, and look at Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's this discussion of, Hillary was sort of at the height of her popularity as she was getting ready to leave the Secretary of State position. That was the whole texts from Hillary phase. There's this discussion about how the media was either treated her unfairly last go around or was too deferential to Obama. So now she sort of has this wind at her back. But knowing the American political media, you have to anticipate that there's going to come a time when they're going to turn on Hillary again, and when they're going to say, okay, now we're back with political Hillary, the sort of, conniving, calculating, behind the scenes dirty work Hillary, and we're going to beat up on her again. I mean, nobody can last, with the exception of Obama in 2008, it's very hard to see anybody enduring the goodwill of the press throughout an entire long presidential season.
Well, it even turned on Obama once he got in the White House.
I would argue that it's at an all-time low. But I just mean during the campaign season.
Right. The other media figure that's been getting a lot of attention because of the latest book by Gabriel Sherbin is Roger Ailes. Why is look to me? And Roger's a sometimes friend of mine. I mean, he and I always have a good relationship. Even though he never hired me, but
there's still time, Bill. There's still time.
No, I told him once. I said, Roger, you realize that Fox News is the only cable channel that I've never worked for, and he said, you never will either.
That's a good line, though.
No, he did. I mean, right away, just boom. But if he's king of the world, right? I mean, look, he's got the most successful cable network. He's filthy wealthy, right? He's got all this power. Why is he so defensive about this book about him? I don't get it.
I think he cares a great deal about his image. His image matters a lot to him. And if you look at his entire career before cable news, going back to the days of Nixon and Reagan, what he does is he shapes narratives. He shapes personalities. And, for his entire career, that's been about political candidates and television personalities and brands and things like that. And now it's finally coming down to him and his own image and his own personality. And I think he probably takes that personally. I think he takes these attacks somewhat personally. And I think that he could just let it all slide off and not fight it, not combat it, not help Gabe sell books. But my guess, and it's pure speculation, is that this is a sore spot for him.
Don't you think, Clinton? Last year there was a very positive autobiography that came out, which he paid for, which he certainly cooperated with, and so this year there's a not so positive one. If I were him, I would just ignore it. Right?
I don't know. I mean, I think to Dylan's point, though, which is that, it's hard to ignore things like this. When you're in the business of hyper-focalizing on every little detail about people, especially on your network and just sort of in the culture in general now, it's not easy to ignore things like that. I mean, that's a large shot at him. And if and he's the kind of guy that feels like he's worked to deserve better than that. I can understand why it's a difficult situation, even if I don't agree with anything that he might, sort of put across. I mean, I think it's as a human and as a man, it's a difficult one to just sit there and look at.
But the reality is, right, Dylan, that the person who's going to benefit most from Roger Ailes' temper tantrum, if you will, is Gabriel Sherman.
I think that's absolutely true. I would add, though,
who wrote the book?
That the conversation that this has generated, there have been a lot of very positive reviews saying, kudos to Sherman for breaking through and reporting on this very hard to crack institution that is Fox. There's also other people saying that, like, look, Sherman is blowing up a mountain into a molehill, or a mountain from a molehill. Like, Roger Ailes is not as influential. He's not as treacherous. He's not as villainous as Sherman makes him out to be. And that sort of launched a new discussion. And in a way, you could see Roger Ailes emerging from this whole debate, actually with a little bit more respect from, I think, the general audience on the moderate left or left that has always wanted to just sort of beat him up as this like treacherous Dr. Evil figure.
The exact opposite of what Gabriel Sherman had hoped to achieve. Dylan Byers, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Go Seahawks.
Go Seahawks.
Final prediction on the score?
LOB.
What's your final prediction on the score?
24-23.
Oh my God! And the last seconds he said to it again.
Field goal involved.
Yeah.
All right, yes indeed. Hey Dylan, we'll see you whenever you get back to Washington D.C. in the studio. We'll keep a chair going for you. All right.
Thanks, Bill.
And we'll be back with Clinton Yates here.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show. on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes now before the top of the hour, waiting for snow here in Washington, D.C., with Clinton Yates in studio with us from the Washington Post. A couple of quick issues. One local and then one not.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, though. Can I hijack this minute for 1 second? You just brought up Al Sharpton in the break. We were talking about something. And have you seen Chris Rock's movie Good Hair?
Yes.
He tells a story that is so incredible about how the reason why Al Sharpton first relaxed his hair is because it was when he was going to the White House to meet with President Reagan about making MLK Day official holiday. And James Brown told him, you got to look like me when we go to the White House. And so they went to a hairdresser in Georgia. And that's when Al Sharpton first got his hair relaxed. And it's never changed it ever since. It's an amazing story. Yeah.
James Brown. That was back when Al Sharpton was big.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's lost 200 pounds since then.
Exactly. And they show a picture, and it's hilarious. So,
oh, my.
Anyway, that's a great MLK Day story if you ever need one to pull out of the bag.
I'll have to go back. Good.
Yeah.
So, locally, I walked down the street, 8th Street, yesterday to go get a little lunch, and I realized I was in front of Popeyes. Now, I would not go in there to eat, but I looked on top, it reminded me, and there is the D.C. Medical Marijuana Bureau right over there.
There it is.
And we saw last week that the majority of residents of D.C. now say that pot should be legal. Is it going to happen here?
I actually think that it is. That was a Washington Post poll that they did, and by almost a 2-to-1 ratio,
or something. Yeah.
Exactly, and it was up in because they did this 4 years ago, and it was about half and half then. And it wasn't just that it was more people; it's up in every single demographic and pretty much every age group as well. And I must admit, this surprises me. Like, decriminalization is one thing, but legalization for personal use is a completely different matter. And I'm not sure that I even necessarily understand why that would need to happen. I mean, the whole federal backyard thing is a serious matter when it comes to D.C. because there's all these issues about, budget control and autonomy and all this other stuff that I think, quite frankly, are obviously more important. And I'm not really sure what the big push is to have marijuana legalized beyond municipal use.
If it's legalized in the federal government's backyard, then it's awfully hard for the federal government then to go and enforce their marijuana laws in other states.
Right, but it doesn't make it harder for them to enforce them here, which is what I think the main concern would be for a lot of residents. I mean, marijuana legalization doesn't mean that you can just go to Rock Creek Park and smoke a joint. That's still federal land, and if you get busted there, you're totally screwed. I guess I just don't understand what the overall end game is to that push beyond being able to just casually smoke, which if these decriminalization laws pass where you can have up to an ounce, which anybody knows is a far reasonable amount of product.
That's a busy weekend.
Yeah.
If you've got an ounce, that's a busy weekend.
And I guess I'm just not sure what the purpose of the legalization push is at this point.
All right. Now, I have to say, I was really excited to hear the president's speech on NSA on Friday, and I sat through the whole thing, and at the end of it, I wasn't sure what the hell he had said. But I want to give you, get your take. But first, this is Jon Stewart, who had his first chance at it last night on The Daily Show.
Well, last Friday, it was finally time for President Barack Obama to address the issues at the NSA. He had a very difficult needle to thread. How to acknowledge the American people's very real concerns about privacy while not upsetting people who apparently know everything about all of us. How to make substantial policy changes while also not really doing that. How would he accomplish this delicate dance?
At the dawn of our republic.
Oh, God. All right. It's going to be one of these. Let's do it.
That's kind of the speech it was to me.
Yeah.
At the dawn of Western civilization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sidebar, I was reading something the other day, and it's been 15 years since that guy started hosting that show, Jon Stewart.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Like, it was 1990. I mean, I guess it was like 99 or 98. I mean, it's been a long time. And like, you think
I remember when they changed
it. doesn't seem
Craig Kilborn
like it,
was
right.
the original.
Kilborn was the original, but it doesn't seem like it's been that long. And it, that blew me away. And I'm not I'm not big
really
on these like I can't believe how old I am kind of statements, but that was one where I was just like, holy smokes, I can't believe that's actually the case.
And he's become so influential. By the way.
Right. I was going to say kudos to him, and he still has the best take on the news of anybody.
It's great.
You know,
It's absolutely great.
So good to see you, my friend.
Hey, man.
Thanks so much for
You
coming.
know
to the
I love
studio.
coming here.
You're welcome anytime.
I'm not the best. Shout out to Richard Sherman.
Yeah, that's all right. We're right back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, troubles keep mounting for Chris Christie. Yeah, on top of the bridge scandal, the mayor of Jersey City says he was cut off from meetings with the governor once he refused to endorse him for re-election. And now the mayor of Hoboken claims that she was told her city would get no Hurricane Sandy relief money unless she supported one of the governor's pet projects. Now, who knows whether these charges are true, but rather than refute them, Christie's decided to wage an all-out political campaign on two fronts. First, he sent Rudy Giuliani out to blame all of Christie's troubles on the Democratic Party, which he says is so afraid of Christie they're trying to undermine his 2016 presidential campaign. Then he's directed his own staff to blame it all on the media, especially MSNBC, both of which lines of attack are ridiculous. Democrats did not orchestrate Chris Christie's problems, and neither did MSNBC, Those wounds, my friend, are self-inflicted. You know, I've got a better idea for Governor Christie. Instead of trying to portray himself now as a victim of political attacks, maybe he ought to try something new for a politician. Just tell the truth. Hey, that's my parting shot for today. I'm Bill Press. Well, we will try to weather the snowstorm, folks. You have a good day wherever you happen to be. And the snow willing, we'll be right back here again tomorrow and look forward to seeing you then.
This
Have a good
is
one.
the Bill Press Show.